This is the She Dares to Travel podcast, and I am your host, Raquella Pollock. After spending a decade managing the #1 travel agency in Canada and now working with tourism businesses in risk management, I am here to connect you with women who are taking the travel industry by storm, as well as business professionals with a passion for travel, just like me. We are here to inspire, motivate, and uplift you to not only follow, but plan out your dreams, no matter where in the world they may be. Be sure to leave a review, subscribe, and follow along. Hello, all you daredevils, and welcome back. It is another episode on the She Dares to Travel podcast, where we showcase leading women in tourism who truly have followed their passion to find these incredible jobs in tourism. And today we have none other than Cline Owen with us, who is a community engagement manager for Wild Women Expeditions. She's been an outdoor enthusiast since early childhood, with canoeing and camping trips with her family. She started guiding whitewater canoe trips with Wild Women Expeditions in 2000, and then has worn many hats and helmets, in her 24 years with Wild Women, as a guide on whitewater canoe and horseback riding trips, a host on ship-based trips, and their community engagement manager between adventures. Her favorite destinations outside of Canada are Iceland, Mongolia, which I'm excited to hear more about Mongolia, and India. She is currently looking forward to hosting a Wild Women group this summer on the Atlantic Islands Odyssey trip, touring the islands off Canada's east coast, including Sable Island, which is home to 450 wild horses and over 350 species of birds. That sounds amazing. Cline, thank you so much for taking the time with us. How are you today?
I'm awesome, and it's so great to be here and to chat with you about adventure and travel and women.
The best topics ever. The best
Totally.
topics. So where are you joining us from today?
Right now, I am in Lindrith, New Mexico, which is just south of the Colorado border, but I live in Ontario. My husband has a family ranch out here in New Mexico, so we travel back and forth. Usually in the spring and fall, we're out here. So we're here now, and we're just loading up our vintage trailer to to do the ride home next week. So I'll be working from the
Wow.
passenger seat on my computer, and the adventures never stop.
Amazing. And how long have you been going back and forth for? When did you move?
Well, I lived in Toronto up until 2005, and then I moved to the country near Peterborough, and then I moved even further in the country to Lake St. Peter, which is just near Algonquin Park, actually. And so I've been kind of going a little bit more remote, but then we do this road trip twice a year to New Mexico, and we've been doing that for the past few years, maybe the
Nice.
last 5 years or so. So.
How long's that road trip?
Well, with the trailer, we do it in about 5 days.
Okay.
We've done it without the trailer in 2 days, where we drive 16 hours a
Wow.
day, sleep in the car overnight. And, so I really prefer the trailer and taking our time and seeing a bit of the states as we go across. And also we stay in with people in their homes sometimes, not in their homes, but we park our
Mhm.
trailer in their driveway, and so we get to meet some cool people along the way. There's a it's called Boondockers Welcome. So you pay $50 a year, and people host you for free in their driveway, and that's been great. So yeah,
I've
lots
never
of
heard of
cool
that.
people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so
Mm-hmm.
essentially you just set up, there's no hookup, or yeah, there wouldn't be any hookup for the
There may
trailer,
be.
right? Maybe?
There may
Oh,
be. It
interesting.
depends on
Yeah,
what facilities they have. Usually there's electrical plug-in, and that's about it. So
nice. That
it's
sounds like a
better
great
than
way.
staying on the side of the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. Wow, what an interesting concept. Instantly when you say ranch, I go straight to Yellowstone, the TV show. Is it similar? Am I picturing it correct?
Well, I wish I could say that it was. They had the cattle and horses here way back in the 80s, and they ran a summer
Yeah.
camp out of the ranch, actually. So it was never really a working ranch as such, but it's 1,000 acres in the hills of New Mexico,
Mm.
and there are hundreds of old Indian homes on the property. So we're
Oh,
constantly finding pottery and arrowheads and other signs that people lived here 1,000 years ago. So that's really cool.
Really, really neat. Sounds like a great getaway to be able to split your time between both and then enjoy the journey always, right? To get between the two places. So
Well,
growing up,
exactly.
did you go to college or university or study tourism?
Well, no, I started in social work when I started university. I always had this idea that I could sort of help people to be more empowered and to be, to live their lives to the fullest. I realized really quickly that social work wasn't for me, and I switched over to English literature and creative writing because that was my love. And I thought, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I'm going to do what I love, and it's actually served me incredibly well. So one of the things I do in the background for Wild Women Expeditions is to do a lot of writing for the
Mm.
blog and the website and stuff like that. And every job I've had has included some kind of writing. So it was sort of a serendipitous choice. I really didn't know where it was going, and it somehow led me to the tourist industry along with my outdoor pursuits all my life. Yeah,
Wow.
university doesn't really the what I did there doesn't really translate to exactly what I'm doing now. But all of the skills
Yeah.
that I've learned, I use every day, so it's quite good.
That is when they always say too that whoever they are in quotations, they always say that it's always a chapter, right? So it's something you keep learning and growing with, and then you find where you can use your
Hmm.
creative outlets in your work, and that's where it truly aligns.
Hmm.
Interesting. So
Exactly.
so what was the switch then from university? Were some of the jobs in literature and writing straight in tourism, or talk a bit about how you got to Wild Women Expeditions as well?
So I always was into the outdoors. My family did canoe trips and camping, although my mom hated it. My dad dragged her along until we were old enough to go without her, and then she relished the time alone. My dad took the three kids off for a week long canoe trip or whatever. So I was doing that on my own, and then at some point I decided that whitewater would be really exciting. We didn't do that as a kid; we just traveled on lakes. So I thought I would take some courses in whitewater, and I got really hooked. I loved it. And within a couple of years, I decided that I would take the instructor course. And mainly, I thought I would take it just to learn more, to really delve into it. But as soon as I finished that, I ran into a friend of mine who had been working as a guide for Wild Women Expeditions. And this was back, I think she was doing this in the late 90s. And so it was probably 99, and she came to me and she said, "Hey, you're a whitewater person. I'm a whitewater person, but I have no qualifications," right? So she said, "I'd love to propose to Wild Women Expeditions that we do a whitewater trip, but I can't guide it. Would you be interested?" And I thought, sure, why not? So she approached the owner at the time. It's a new owner now.
Mhm.
And the owner went for it. She said, "I can only afford, I have a budget for one guide. So if you're willing to guide it together and split the guiding fee," which at the time was $80 a day. So we each got paid $40 a day,
Oh,
and
wow.
we borrowed the equipment we needed. You sort of pulled it all together, and we had a great trip. And so we did it again the next year, and we added another whitewater trip. And so it sort of went on from there. And then Wild Women started as just a really small company in Ontario running trips for women, a few trips a year. And it was growing and growing and growing. And the original owner was an amazing outdoors person and had a real vision of bringing women together in the outdoors. But I wouldn't say that business was her main forte. So
Mhm.
as the company grew, she was more doing background work and less in the field, she realized that she was ready to move on. And that's when Jennifer Haddo took over the company. And she had a huge vision of taking it worldwide, all sports. And we just exploded and expanded from there. And lucky for me, she kept me on as a guide and a consultant. So I worked consulting and guiding for a number of years. And it was just in the pandemic, I closed my yoga studio that
Mm.
I'd been running for about 20 years and jumped on board full time with Wild Women Expeditions and and now do a variety of roles. And as you said, my official title is community engagement manager. But I do a whole lot of different things with the company, including occasionally still guiding the odd trip.
With moving into that role with Wild Women Expeditions as the guide, leading up to that, had you traveled quite a bit outside the country before as well, or was that portion
Mhm.
new to you?
No, I after university, I decided to take 6 months and travel Europe, as many people do. And
Beautiful.
my yeah, and it was a great trip, although I cried on the plane the whole way there because I was so terrified. Um, and my feeling with that trip was get the travel bug out of me before I settle down and get a real job. And that didn't happen at all. 2 years
That's a
later,
that's a dangerous thought.
yeah,
That's a dangerous
I
one.
had no idea at the time. But 2 years later, I didn't see all of Europe on the first trip, so I went back and did another 2 months. And this time rented a car and went with a friend. And the first time was on trains and on my own, just meeting people along the way. And my family actually comes from Wales, so all of my relatives are in Wales. So a lot of our traveling, which when it wasn't canoeing and camping, was going over to Wales and traveling around Wales and England as well. So I had done that as a child and then toured Europe and yeah, been to India several times now, which is one of my favorite places. So yeah, I had done a lot of traveling, was really into seeing the world and also having adventures.
Absolutely. And I mean, with all the travels that you've had, can you pinpoint anywhere? I mean, you mentioned you love India, and I can
Mm-hmm.
imagine as a, a yoga studio owner, that is a perfect place to go and do, whether it's teaching, learning, yoga in general. What, speaking directly to India, what would you say are some of your favorite parts of the country, and what's the best things to do when you're there?
Well, most of my time spent in India, and it's been a little over a year altogether if you add up the six
Mm,
different times I've been studying. So I've been renting apartments and working with teachers and staying in one place. So I haven't really seen a ton of the country. But Wild Women added a horseback riding trip in India a few years ago. And so I was able to do that trip last year. And so I explored the more north than I had been in India. I'd only been in the south before. So spent time in Rajasthan, which is absolutely stunning and beautiful, colorful. If you love textiles and color and just a lot of activity, Rajasthan, there's lots going on, a lot of history. It was my first time in Delhi last year as well, which is an overwhelming, very busy city, but chaotic but amazing, amazing and incredible. I have not yet been to the Taj Mahal. That'll be on my next trip. I'm planning to go back this year. So, some of those tourist things that I haven't had an opportunity to do because I've been so set on studying and learning and teaching there as well. So, it's my spiritual home. I've met people
mm,
there. I've been going for 20 years. I have a family there that I call my family. The daughter is 19 now, so she was born just after my first visit. She calls me her second mom. I'm supporting her to go to university. She just finished her first year, so I have this real connection with people, with the place. But India is somewhere where you can see it all. It's the best and the worst of life. It's authentic, and I think that's really what pulls me most. Is India doesn't lie. It doesn't pretend to be something it's not. You see where you get what you see, and then you get all what's under the surface and all this richness and beauty as well. So India still holds a great fascination. It's a massive country. I could go back 100 more times and still not see everything that I want to see. But I will say that I spent a lot of time in the south. It's a little calmer there. So if someone's thinking about going to India for the first time, maybe starting in the south, maybe not landing right into Delhi, where it's absolutely chaos. But hey, if you have an adventurous spirit, go for it. It's an amazing place, and there's lots to discover.
It's interesting when you say it's the best and the worst all mixed in one. And I think that is one of the most accurate descriptions I've heard of India. And I haven't been myself. I do know what many people that have been before, but it's a place where I think a lot of people shy away from. And especially as a female traveling solo, it can be something that is very it might not even be on some travelers' lists just
Mm-hmm.
because of the reputation, the thought of the aggressiveness that can happen when it comes to a country that's just used to negotiating and selling and bartering all the time, which
Mm-hmm.
we're not really used to here in North America.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say for a woman that is looking to go solo to India?
Mm. Yeah, well, that's a really good point, right? Because it is very aggressive, and I spent time in Egypt this year, and people had
Mhm.
said, "Oh, it's so aggressive," and I was like, no, not compared to India. So once you've been to India, you can pretty much handle anywhere else in the world when it comes to people
Noted.
trying to sell you stuff. Yeah. So I mean, really, you put on a shield. You put on a shield, when you're not making eye contact with people who are wanting something from you, and you keep moving. It's not a bad idea for your first time to go to India to go with a tour group.
Mhm.
Maybe go on your own, but meet up with a group when you're there. And then, like I said, for your first trip to India, staying in the south, or if you do end up going to Delhi, or some of the bigger cities like Mumbai, even Chennai is in the south, is a big city, but it's still a little bit calmer. But seek out those places of refuge. There's lots of places in India that aren't the typical busy, crazy, right? Like Delhi is the absolute epitome of India. And I've had friends who've gone there and ended their trip early. They hated it. And my advice is, if you don't really want to go to India, if it's sort of not your first choice, don't go. But if you're dying to
Yeah.
go and it's somewhere that you've always had a hankering for, then put on your shield and go for it. It's an amazing,
Mhm.
amazing place. But if you're a little unsure, it is overwhelming. It can be too much. I went my first trip to India, I went to Nepal first. And so
Mm.
Nepal is a little bit like India, only maybe lighter. And so
Mhm.
you might start there, start somewhere where it's a little more calm, and then kind of slowly make your way into
Move
the
in.
chaos of it all. Yeah.
Mhm.
But you're going to see things that are disturbing. It's not an
Yeah.
easy country. It's not a place where you're going to sit on the beach and relax. You're going to see things that will haunt you and disturb you, and you have to be ready for
Mhm.
that kind of adventure. And you have to be a traveler who's willing to be outside of your comfort zone,
Yeah.
right? And at
Very
Wild Woman
true.
Expeditions, that's what we encourage. We encourage people to step out of their comfort zone, but there's stages, right? So take a
Yes.
step out of your comfort zone, get comfortable there, and then take the next step. So,
Don't hurl
maybe
yourself out of the comfort zone. Might be a
exactly,
bit shocking.
exactly, exactly. But a little toe in. So start in
Yeah.
Kerala, in the very south of India, where it's sort of more resorty and beachy, and then work your way
Mhm.
north from there.
Great advice. It is great advice. And it's a place that I've never had too high on my list to go, but I have been to Sri Lanka, I've been to Morocco.
Hmm.
And the culture that's a bit more aggressive and salesy. I
Yeah.
felt that before. But it's an interesting one. I wonder if I will venture there, but I'll take your advice. I'll start in the south and not
Hmm.
hurl myself into it when I do go. Very
Hmm.
interesting. So with
Hmm.
Wild Women Expeditions, where around the world do these expeditions go?
Very many places now. It's, I think, about 40 destinations around the world. So we
Okay.
have lots of trips in Canada. And then, as I mentioned, Egypt, where I was in January, Morocco, which you also
Mhm, mhm.
mentioned that you've been to. I was there recently, and just back from Japan last week. So Japan is one of our newer itineraries. This is the first year that we're offering it. We just launched Cambodia and Vietnam, I think yesterday or the day before, so very recently. Bali and Thailand. So a lot of those
Mm.
destinations in Asia, which people love. And then in Europe, we have Scotland. We have a group in the Azores right now riding horses. The Azores are
Wow.
islands that belong to Portugal, and absolutely beautiful, a chain of volcanic islands. And Iceland, another volcanic island,
Mhm.
which I adore. And of course, Mongolia, my one of my new
Yeah.
favorite destinations. So really, all over the world. Not everywhere, of course, but we're always
A
expanding,
yeah,
and
good chunk.
finding new destinations, and trying to include the things that people want to see in those destinations, but really include things that you might not visit. For instance, on our Japan trip that I just did, we were on the Oki Islands, which
Mm.
we were told that usually people go to Japan 4, 5, 6 times before they discover the Oki Islands, because they're quite out there, they're quite remote, very different feeling from Japan, very calm. Not that Japan isn't calm; it's quite calm, but also busy. But the Oki Islands, full of nature and beautiful, beautiful. So we got the opportunity to
Mm.
explore there a little bit, which you might not discover on your own.
I've never heard of the Oki Islands. How
Hmm.
far is
Hmm.
it from the mainland?
We took a ferry. It was about 3 hours on the ferry, so I'm not sure how far that would be
Not
in
bad.
kilometers, but
Yeah.
it wasn't bad. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Not bad. So what's the when it comes to wild women expeditions, what is the ideal behind it? Is it more about women getting together to experience adventures together? Is it more about the location? How would you sum up what it is you guys are doing for women that go on your trips?
Great question. So it's sort of twofold. So there's the women who come on our trips and what we hope that they'll experience, but there's also the women in the countries that we visit, right? So and working to, I would say, empowerment is the biggest theme that overrides all of that. So when women come on our trips, we want them to feel supported. We want them to feel challenged, that comfort zone thing, right? Step a little outside of your comfort zone, feel supported, feel challenged. And as a result, you're able to grow and learn and expand your horizons a little bit. And then when it
Mm.
comes to the countries we're visiting, we're hiring women guides as much as really hiring women guides, I'll say. Sometimes there's male support staff on the trips, but our main guides are always women. And we're guiding in countries where women aren't typically thought of as leaders, right? Like in Egypt
Mhm.
or in Morocco or in Japan, women often take a back seat to the men. So we're providing opportunities for women to shine in leadership, and we're supporting them. We're giving them some training. They're all guides. They're all fantastic guides. They're all great at what they do. But when it comes to the group dynamic, we want them to also foster this ability to allow women to feel empowered on the trips. And recently, we went through. We just launched a new website, which we're really excited about. And one of the things that we honed in on is what we call the Wild Women Way. And so let me just share the highlights of what that is to you. So the first thing is that we are the group. So when you arrive at a Wild Women trip, you're not arriving into a group, you are part of the group and you're creating that group. And that group dynamic is largely built by the people who show up. And so we really encourage and foster that supportive kind of group dynamic. And also that we know the limits of comfort, right? So in
Mhm.
Japan, we talked a lot about, what pushed you out of your comfort zone on this trip. For some people, it was the food, eating food that was alive a moment ago, or raw food, or food that you can't quite identify.
Yeah.
That was out of some people's comfort zone. For some, it was the hiking, right? The challenging of
Mm.
hiking was out of their comfort zone a little bit. But everybody rose to what challenged them and felt that they gained out of that experience. We also like to be flexible. We believe in what we call the expedition spirit. So when we go to an all-inclusive, we have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen, right? We're going to get a drink. We're going to sit on the beach. We might go to the pool. We're going to go
Yeah.
to one of the dining rooms, all of that stuff. But when you're on an expedition, things change, right? We don't always know what's going to happen. The weather is going to have an impact on what we're able to do that day, the energy of the group or the ability of the group. We might have some challenging things planned, and then the group shows up, and after the first day, we realize this is not going to work for them. So we're always massaging and changing and creating as much we can the experience that the group is up for. So we like to say when we come together in adventure, supporting and challenging one another, we co-create the conditions for tremendous growth and life-changing connections.
It sounds like the women that go on these expeditions end up more than likely meeting some lifelong friends, I can imagine, that continue to connect.
Absolutely. And that's a question that's often asked is, can I come solo? Or should I come with a friend? And we always encourage women to come solo. When you come with a friend,
Mhm.
that's great too. And you can have experiences with someone you already know. Often those people tend to stay together and they don't necessarily
Mhm.
branch out and meet others on the trip. So when women come solo, they tend to meet people and then often they'll go on another trip, wild women trip together in the future. But there's definitely lifelong friends. And we have a Facebook group as well, which has almost 28,000 people. And so women are connecting there. And I
Mm.
sometimes will host, as community engagement manager, host what I call my community campfire chats. And it's
Oh,
really just
yeah.
an online opportunity to connect and to chill out with each other. And there's usually a topic. So we might have a topic that we're talking about, but really it's just about getting together and connecting. So there's opportunities outside of the trips for women to get together, sort of that we curate, but there's also a lot of women who then go on to join up on other trips as well.
Thank you to Hotel Z Kelowna, Victoria, and Tofino for being our sponsor. You can also save 15% off your next getaway using the code DARES2, DARES 2, the number 2, at hotelz.com. These funky and unique hotels are in British Columbia, and they're going to have you not wanting to leave while you're on your next vacation. Enjoy. What a great idea. And even I can imagine if someone's saying, hey, I'm going on this trip on these dates, is anyone else going too? And they can even
Mm-hmm.
connect before the trip to kind of get to know each other a bit more.
Yeah,
What would you say
absolutely.
the average age is for people that do come on the trips?
We just looked at that recently, and I can't
Hmm.
remember the exact number, but it's somewhere around mid 50s. So
Okay.
it's not a young demographic.
Yep.
Although we have women in their 20s, we have teenagers who will
Hmm.
often come with their moms on trips. And the oldest woman that I've had on a trip twice, two women who are 80 and 81, and
Wow.
doing real adventurous trips.
Good for them.
Yes, one woman came on the Nahanni River, which is a remote, big whitewater river up in the Northwest Territories, a 12-day trip or something like that, when she was 80. And another woman galloped across Iceland with us, and she think she was 81. So
That's
amazing. And
goals right there. The
oh,
goals.
amazing,
Yes.
amazing. And there's
Wow.
really no age limit to adventure. We have adventures that, of course, are more physically demanding, such as going to Everest Base Camp, versus adventures that are much more mild, like going to Egypt. We're walking around the ancient sites. We're on a boat going down the Nile, but it's not terribly active trip. And
Hmm.
so women can choose the adventure that suits them for their age and their ability.
Hmm. And what type of accommodations typically are these trips, or do you have different categories or levels?
Absolutely. So it could be anywhere from backcountry tenting, where you're literally setting up your tent and you've got your sleeping pad and your sleeping bag and all of that. On our horse trip in Mongolia, we do stay that way in tents and sometimes in yurts. And then it could be all the way up to luxury hotels. We
Mm.
stayed at a place on the Oki Islands that's really unique hotel called Ento, which is owned by the community, and it's all based on sustainable practices. And the food was out of this world. I think most of us said it was the best food we've ever eaten in our lives, and prepared in front of us by a master chef and
Wow.
impeccably served and detailed. So it really runs the gamut from, really roughing it backcountry, or sleeping all together in a one-room hut in Iceland, to these luxury accommodations with incredible 8-course meals, everything in between.
That sounds incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost nice that you can pick and choose what type of adventure. So choose your own adventure that you
Mm-hmm.
would like to have with the other women. Very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I want to ask too, I mean, I love that you are and the company is empowering women, especially the ones that are locals, to do the touring and the guiding. I can imagine, as you mentioned, in some of the countries where, men do come first before women. Have you seen any challenges, whether it was on trips or when hiring the women to do tours? Is there something that's kind of been a common challenge that you're working to overcome, or something for us to be aware of when it comes to these certain countries?
Yeah, we're, as a group with Wild Women Expeditions, we're really insulated from a lot of the judgment that might come, maybe even as a solo traveler or for women who live in those countries. So we are
Mhm.
insulated from it quite a lot. I would say one of the biggest challenges that we do face is finding guides who are excellent and experienced. And our guides, we call them our guiding lights, right? They really are
Oh, I like
shining for
that.
us and showing us the way. But it can be challenging to find enough guides. So we're really working to just find the best women, but even still, it's a small pool in some of the countries that we're working with. And yeah, I would say that's the biggest challenge. And then empowering those women, right? So if they're used to, even though they're guiding, they may not be used to saying things like, this is not really appropriate in this country, and
Mm.
letting us know, maybe don't wear that skirt where we're going today because it's a little short.
Yeah.
It's fine. There's no judgment, but you're going to get looked at, or you're going to get comments. So the guides are really there to let us know what's most appropriate. And I'm often there to empower those guides to be able to do that, right? So if I'm there to train a new guide, to say, it's okay to tell the women to shut up on the train, because in Japan, you don't speak loudly, you don't talk on your cell phone on the train. Like it's okay to let the women know. So really giving the women in those countries a little more power, empowering them to make those decisions and to say what's necessary.
Beautiful. Beautiful and important.
Mm-hmm.
Very important for all of
Mm-hmm.
us to learn, because it's true. Every culture is something different. There's always a level of respect you need to bring when you travel, but it's also learning that
Mm-hmm.
respect as well. So with the different trips that you have, I know you have the Atlantic Islands Odyssey coming up. When is that one
Mm-hmm.
taking place? It sounds awesome.
I Yeah, I believe we embark on the 27th of, it's
Hmm.
either the 26th or 27th of June. I think it's 27th of June, and we're
Oh,
12
coming
days
up.
out at sea.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I was lucky enough to get to do this trip 2 years ago, and I'm hosting it again. So hosting it means that we're on a ship with about 200 passengers, and we usually have somewhere around 30 wild women on the trip.
Hmm.
So my role is to help the women feel like they're on an exclusive adventure for wild women, even though we're part of this bigger community on the ship that's co-ed. And so we'll do outings together. We have separate space in the dining room that we always meet for meals. We do some receptions. I play guitar and ukulele, so sometimes I'll lead a sing along, or bring women into the we do an open mic night on the boat. So just trying to keep that community spirit intact when we're on a ship with more people. So we embark in St. John's, Newfoundland, and then we go from there to some of the islands off the coast. And it's really, even as a Canadian, there's a lot of places that I hadn't even heard of before I did this trip before. Most Canadians have never been to Sable Island, if they've even heard of it,
Hmm.
or to the Magdalen Islands, Cape Breton Island. And then there's actually a French island, it's part of France, called Saint Pierre and Miquelon, which is off the coast of
Oh.
Canada as well. Like, you literally go to France, so you can get your passport stamped France, but you're just off the coast of Canada, and you go into the stores there, and everything is imported from
Wow.
France.
Oh,
So
no
that was a
way.
really unique experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm. And
Interesting.
Sable Island is a place that I've been dreaming about for about 20 years, because of my love of horses. Right, there's 450, sometimes 500. It fluctuates a little bit, the number of horses, but they aren't interfered with at all. So there's no human
Mm.
interference. They're not actually wild horses per se, because they were once domesticated. They were brought to the
Mm.
island at some point a few hundred years ago. They used to think they were there from shipwrecks. The island is very long and narrow. It's just a sandbar with a bunch of grass.
Mm.
And because it's very shallow all around it, the waters, there's a lot of different currents, and it's a very tricky place to be in a boat around. And so there've been a lot of shipwrecks around the island. And it was originally thought that the horses came from the shipwrecks, but it turns out there's no genetic evidence for that. The horses were brought over, they think, stolen and brought over there. And the idea was that they would breed, and then they would take horses back and sell them on the mainland. They also took sheep, goats, cattle. The horses were the only ones to survive. It's a pretty harsh
Mm.
environment, and the horses have lived there for hundreds of years now. And we go and we hope to see some, and take a lot of pictures and just watch them from a distance. So we don't get close to them. We
Yeah.
just let them do their thing and watch from a distance. But birders are also in love with Sable Island, because there's over 350 species of birds. There's the Ipswich sparrow there, which only mates there on Sable Island, which is kind of neat. Doesn't mate anywhere else in the world, so it's got its own home. And there's also, in the harbor, there are harbor seals and gray seals, and like hundreds of them when I was there last time. So a really unique environment. And it's now a national park. And so you can visit. It used to be that only people who were researchers studying the horses or
Mm.
the wildlife could go there. But now normal human beings can also visit the island. But of course, it's about 100 miles off the coast of Nova Scotia, so it's not easy to get to. You either
Mm-hmm.
have to charter a plane or charter a boat. So we're so lucky that this trip goes there, and we spend 3 days. And the reason, so we stay on the ship just off the coast, and we take zodiacs in each day to
Mm.
visit the island. But the reason we have so long there is because there's about a 50-50 chance, weather and ocean currents, whether we're going to be able to land at any given time. So if we have 3 days, we hope that we can at least land one or two of the days, if not all
Mm.
three. Last time I was there, we had just 2 days scheduled on Sable Island, and we were really lucky. We got to land both days, and we saw a whole pile of horses, lots of birds, and tons of seals. So we were very lucky, and I'm hoping for our group this time that we'll be just as lucky. But we also visit, we hike on Cape Breton Island. We go to another group of islands called the Bird Islands, which is another
Mm.
birders' paradise where we see puffins flapping away and cormorants and some of those really fascinating seabirds that everybody loves. And then, of
No,
course, we end in
yeah.
Saint Pierre in France, and then fly
In
back to Canada.
France. Wow, that sounds like such an incredible experience. I had no idea. I haven't traveled further past Ontario in Canada. I've
Mm.
traveled the entire world to all these countries, and I've yet to go that far east. And every time I hear
Amazing.
about it, I always find something new, and that is so intriguing. I'm gonna research all of those places just to take a look and see what they're all about. But what a unique experience. Is it only one like expedition company that does this boat trip? Because that's quite a few people that they're taking out, like
Hmm.
on a small cruise line, small expedition ship, that kind of thing.
Yeah, we partner with this amazing company called Adventure Canada, and they mainly
Mm,
do tours in the Arctic. And so they have this tour in around the east coast of Canada, and
mm,
then the boat goes up towards the Arctic, and they do Greenland and the Labrador, and
mm.
they do into and out of the Northwest Passage.
Yeah.
And at some point, the boat also goes from Scotland over to Iceland via the Faroe Islands, which I did last year, which was
Oh.
incredible. I seem to have a thing for volcanic islands in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
And then that boat goes in the winter with a different company down to Antarctica. And so I've also
Mm,
gone on that ship down to Antarctica as well twice, two back-to-back
wow.
trips down there with
What
wild
do you
women.
think
So
your most daring adventure has been? All of these seem incredible. Could you narrow it down to
mhm.
one moment?
Yeah, that is a really tricky question, and I did give it a little thought, and probably the Nahanni River up in the Northwest
Mm,
Territories that I mentioned earlier. I guided up there for about 10 years. It's a big, big whitewater river, and
mm,
most of the trips start just above Virginia Falls, which is about twice as high as Niagara Falls. And so the first thing we do, we arrive, we fly in just above the falls. And then we have a day there, and we get in the canoes above the falls just to test out partners. How's it going to look? How's it going to feel? Learn a few strokes in the canoe. Most people should have some experience when they come, but they don't always have
yeah.
whitewater experience or very much experience. So it's always a bit nerve wracking. So then the second day, we hike all of our gear, the kilometer trail down past the falls and the big, huge rapid above the falls. We get to the bottom, and most of the trips I had done up until this certain point were in August. In August, the water's low and it's pretty tame. We go down a canyon. The first thing we do, there's this canyon. So it's the canyon's formed by the waterfall moving back
Mm.
over the years,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And
Yeah.
it's hugely deep, hundreds of feet deep. And the water in there, as the canyon sort of goes side to side, just sloshes off the canyon walls and makes these massive waves. In August, when the water's low, it's very doable. Often I would still raft the canoes together. So it means you take two canoes and you get some driftwood poles and you
Mm.
lash those to the canoes. So you make kind of a raft. And those rafts are virtually unsinkable. I won't say that they're completely unsinkable, but I've never seen one tip or sink. So even in August, when the water's calm, because it's such a long stretch of rapid, 6 kilometers, the water's very cold. We're wearing wetsuits, but if there's an upset, it's going to be a long time in the water. So for safety, I like to do that. This particular trip was in June, and we got to the bottom, and the water was at least twice as high as I've ever seen it. It was massive. So, of course, we lashed the canoes together, but we were a group of 5 canoes. So, there was one canoe, which was mine, that was not rafted. And so off we went, and it was massive. I had a beginner in my canoe, the only one who volunteered. and we had some narrow escapes from flipping, and at some point about 3/4 of the way down I could see one of the rafts was kind of just floating. They weren't paddling, and so I was able to make my way over to them, and I could see that their raft was starting to come apart. And so I just said, you know what, hold on to the raft and just drift down. You're better off together than apart. And so they just kind of went in circles, drifted down, made their way to the bottom. We all reconvened at this one island at the bottom of the rapid, and big high fives, and really felt that we'd accomplished something really massive. I'd gone down that river many times before. I'd led women only groups, I'd led co-ed groups, and this was the most massive that I had seen it. And so we were absolutely pumped that we had made it. We'd had a few challenges along the way, but we got to the bottom in one piece. And yeah, that big exhale, and that was probably just the most adventurous, most sort of like crazy thing we did on a trip.
Holy, the adrenaline must have been pumping so
yeah.
hard after that. But what an accomplishment that afterwards you go home and I can imagine that if a situation comes up at home after a trip like that, it's definitely something you think this isn't that big of a deal compared to what you just accomplished.
Yeah, exactly.
That is incredible. What for
It's
all of the
true,
adventures?
actually.
Yeah,
That
does that happen?
perspective, right? Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Your perspective totally changes, and you think,
Yeah.
gosh, I conquered Fourth Canyon on the Nohani River. Like, I can pretty much do anything.
Can you imagine saying that at work too? It's like they're like, oh no, there's an issue at work. The systems aren't working. And it's like, that's fine. I've conquered the Nahani River. It's no big deal.
Yeah, exactly. No
I like
problem.
that. I like it. No problem. Oh, that is amazing. And it sounds like it sounds like you've been on so many different adventures and you've got to experience other women having either their first adventure, their 50th adventure, whatever it is. With all of this experience, what would you say to people that are nervous about stepping outside their comfort zone? And why should they do it? And what could maybe they look to get out of it?
hmm Yeah, there's a saying that I like to live by, and I think it might even be the title of a book, and it's like feel the fear and do it anyway, right? And
Yeah.
we don't grow when we don't step out of our comfort zone. So it's certainly I often feel anxious. Like, I mean, I do all these crazy things, but there's often in the background some anxiety, some fear, some before almost every trip, I think, what am I doing? Like, why don't I just stay home where it's easy? And then I'm like, no, no, I need to see the world. But travel isn't always comfortable or easy, and to embrace that, right? And if you're feeling scared about going solo, go with a group. Go with a group the first few times you're out there in the world, and maybe only go with a group, or maybe gain some confidence and then go out solo. But know absolutely that fear and anxiety are normal. They're not indications that you shouldn't be doing the thing, right? We evaluate, like, is this actually a safe thing to do? Am I going to die doing this? And if we okay, like there's a reasonable amount of risk, but we're not putting ourselves in grave danger here. But to just know that fear is normal, right? And to take a deep breath. I had a woman on a trip my trip in Japan recently who was absolutely terrified of heights, and she'd had a bad experience a number of years ago where she was hiking on a glacier and she went down into a crevasse, and it took some time to be rescued. And of course, when you're down in a crevasse, you're alone. You don't know what's going to happen. It's terrifying. And so we were hiking along the cliffs in the Oki Islands, and she was losing it. And so I took her hand, and one of the other ladies took her other hand, And we just talked her the whole way down, like, you're doing great, you're doing awesome. It's totally understandable that you're scared. This is a
Mhm.
scary thing. And got to the bottom, and, big hugs all around.
Mm.
And we had a moment to debrief the next day. And I said to her, how do you feel now? And she said, I'm really glad I did it. And because I had the support of you and Carolyn, the other woman who was holding her hand, she said, because I had your support, I feel like I was able to heal a little bit more from the PTSD that I've been carrying around that experience where I was alone in the bottom of that crevasse. So
Yeah.
it's there are such great opportunities to heal when we allow ourselves to be outside of our comfort zones, opportunities to grow. And if we don't take those because we're scared, then we stay in our little bubble. And that's fine. If that's where you want to
Mhm.
be, I have no problem with that. But if you
Mhm.
want to adventure, then you're going to be uncomfortable.
Absolutely. That's so
Yeah.
beautiful. It's a reminder that we are capable of so much as humans, and we're capable of so much as women, that when we put our mind to it, when we're surrounded by support, we really
Yeah.
can accomplish so much. And I think right there, that story in itself shows the difference when you go on a tour or something different that you can experience when it's all women, because we
Hmm.
do have this understanding of one another. There is an
Hmm.
understanding when it comes to traveling with other women. So
Hmm.
that's a great story to end it on. Thank you so much
Mm.
for sharing your stories, your journeys, your adventures. I can't wait to follow you and see where in the world you go next. I'm definitely going to be looking at all of the things for the Atlantic Odyssey. Where can people
Absolutely.
find you on social media,
Yep.
website?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook and Instagram, Wild Women Expeditions. And if people want to join our community group, you don't have to have gone on a trip. You can just join. It's Wild Women is the group. And our website is www.wildwomenexpeditions.com. And we also love to chat. So if you want to give us a call or send us an email, adventure@wildwomenexpeditions.com is our email address. And you can also give us a call. It's 1-888-993-1222.
Does it spell wild
I
somewhere?
don't think so.
Maybe?
I
No.
don't think it
Okay.
spells anything in particular, and that's why I always have a hard time remembering the phone number. And of course, who calls people these days? But we do love
I
it when the
know.
phone rings. We love chatting about adventures with
Yeah.
women, and just everything to do with adventures and everything to do with women and empowerment. We're all about it.
Mhm.
We'd love to chat.
I love it. Thank you again for the time and just sharing your journey with us.
Awesome. It's been so wonderful to chat with you and to be part of your She Dares to Travel podcast. Thanks so much, Raquella.
If you like this episode, please subscribe, download a few more, and leave a review. I really would love to hear from you, what you enjoyed and what your key takeaways were. And of course, please let me know if there's any aspect of the travel industry you want me to talk about next. You can also search for the hashtag She Dares to Travel podcast on Instagram and comment on the episode's post with your questions. I'd love to answer them all for you guys. I hope you enjoy your day, stay so well, and until next time, fly straight.